fellow, and I'm a junior studying poli-sci here at CSU, and currently a fellow with the Clinton campaign. So a little bit about me. I volunteered with campaigns since I was in high school, when I worked to help re-elect Obama in 2012. And in my freshman year here at Colorado State, I knocked doors for Mark Udall without a car, which was admittedly scary, but it was exciting. I felt for the first time like I was making a difference, and I was hooked. I changed my major to political science that semester and never looked back. But from the moment Bernie Sanders launched his campaign, I felt like his message spoke to me. As a student, as a woman, and as a millennial, watching as income inequality grows and climate change progresses to the point of no return has at times made me feel like I needed to do more. And Bernie's campaign gave voice to my concerns and inspired me to act. Bernie listened. He presented solutions for student debt, for our climate, for the mounting deficit. He started a political revolution. He made me feel like I could do something for my generation, and I can honestly say up to that point I had never been that excited to knock doors. But besides the hateful rhetoric coming from our opponents, the thing that bothers me the most about this election is the idea that Bernie sold out, that in supporting Hillary, he, and by extension his supporters, compromised his progressive values. But that's patently untrue. Hillary has always been a progressive. In fact, Bernie was literally standing right beside Hillary when she championed healthcare reform in 1993 and 1994. And he's still behind her today while she runs for the presidency on the most progressive platform in Democratic Party history. I, like Bernie, am proud to stand with Hillary as we fight for healthcare reform, education reform, gender equality, campaign finance reform, and solutions to climate change for all Americans, even the ones who aren't going to be voting to elect us. And it is an honor and an absolute privilege to welcome him back to Fort Collins and prove that progressives are stronger together. Bernie Sanders!
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is a wonderful turnout, and I thank all of you for being here today. We have some serious business to go over. It's like, the future of the world. Other than that, it's not too important. I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one, I am requesting that you do everything you can in the next several weeks to make certain that Donald Trump does not become president of the United States. And obviously, I am here to see that you do everything that you can to make sure that Hillary Clinton does become president of the United States. This country faces enormous problems, and I wish that I could tell you that my generation has left this world in a better place than your generation, but that's not the truth. There are enormous problems out there, and the only way that we are going to address those problems is when we stand together as one people. Now, I have many, many disagreements with Mr. Trump on many issues. I'm going to go over them. But most importantly, for those of you who know American history, who know the struggles that we have undertaken as a nation from literally before this country was founded, when the first settlers came here and did terrible things the Native Americans. And all of you are aware of the abomination of slavery and the struggle of women for equality and the struggle for gay rights. All of these struggles took place to try to make America a less discriminatory society. To do what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I'm paraphrasing him when he said, we judge people not by the color of their skin, by where they came from, or their gender, or their sexual orientation. We judge them by their character, who they are as human beings. And what is most upsetting to me in this campaign is that after all of that struggle to try to break down discrimination, we have a candidate for president who is in fact trying to do exactly the opposite, to divide us up. And that is not what we can allow to happen. Now, you have heard a lot about the horrific attitude that Mr. Trump has toward women, his objectification of women, his insults to women, and more. And in fact, some of the words that he has used to describe women, I got it here, I can't even use them because they are embarrassing to me and because my wife would kill me. Right? But that clearly, we can respect people who have different points of view. That's called democracy. But you cannot elect, we cannot elect somebody as President of the United States, not only who disparages women, but who has racist attitudes. I want all of you to know, but some of you may not, is that before Mr. Trump announced his candidacy for president, he was a leader in the so-called birther movement. Now, you know what the birther movement was? What the birther movement was a racist attempt to suggest that Barack Obama was not born in the United States. And it was an attempt to delegitimize the presidency of the first African American ever to become our president. That's what Trump was about. And I don't have to tell you about his insults to our Latino brothers and sisters, calling Mexicans rapists or criminals, or his attack on the Muslim religion and trying to say that Muslims, in a totally unconstitutional way, could not come into our country. That is not somebody who is fit to become president. But I want to go beyond that today. I want to go beyond that because while the media thinks otherwise, this campaign is not really about Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. It's not about Trump or Clinton. Do you know what this campaign is ultimately about? It's about you. If Trump loses, he will do just fine. And if Hillary loses, she will do just fine. The question is, what about the middle class of this country? What about working families in this country? What about young people in this country? What about the children in this country? So what we have got to do, and we don't do it enough as a nation. Now I know you're big football fans here, but this is not like a football game. Politics is not somebody winning and somebody losing. It's about what happens to 320 million Americans. And it's obligatory for us to take a hard look at the major issues facing our people and determine which candidate is the better candidate. So let me just tick them off. All right, in my view, the major crisis that we face today is the very serious movement in this country to oligarchy. You all know what that means, oligarchy? This country was based, and God knows we had to overcome so many obstacles in the way. This country was kind of based on the fact that as a democratic society, all of us are equal. You get a vote, and you get a vote, and everybody has equal opportunity. Now, the truth is, our history is not really, did not allow that to happen, but that's at least what we believe, that all of us are equal. Well, this is what's going on right now. Today, we have a campaign finance system which is undermining American democracy. What does that mean? It means that instead of the American people equally having one person, one vote, several trends are taking place which are very frightening. Number one, as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, billionaires like the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and others, a handful of people with hundreds of billions of dollars between them, have determined that owning our economy is not good enough. They now want to own the United States government. And what we are seeing is in state after state after state, these billionaires pouring in huge amounts of money to elect senators and congressmen. That is not democracy. That is oligarchy. I spoke to Secretary Clinton a couple of weeks ago. We were in New Hampshire together, and she told me to tell you that within the first 100 days of her administration, she would bring forth a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. And second of all, what she also has said publicly is that she will not nominate anybody to the United States Supreme Court unless that nominee is clear that he or she will vote to overturn Citizens United. Now, why is that important? Now, by the way, Mr. Trump has said that he's going to appoint another conservative to the Supreme Court, which means that Citizens United will remain intact. Now, why is that issue enormously important? I know that many of you are concerned about education, and you're concerned about climate change. Thank you. I was just getting there. And you're concerned about sexism and racism and all the important issues facing our country. But if you are concerned about any and all of those issues, you must be concerned about the non-sexy issue of campaign finance. Doesn't sound like it's important, but it is. And this is why. And this is why. I hope very much that what I try to do in my campaign is to move us toward a revitalization of American democracy. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is democracy is not a spectator sport. All right? People fought and died so that you can help determine the future of this country. And if you sit it out, you are being extremely unpatriotic. What I want to see and why Citizens United is so important, I hope that in the coming years, people in this room will be thinking about running for school board, for city council, for state legislature, for Congress, for the Senate, for president. I want you to be involved in the political process. I want this country to have the highest voter turnout of any country on earth, not one of the lowest voter turnouts of any country on earth. But that means if I am asking you to get involved in the political process, I want you to have a fair shot to win those elections, and you're not going to have a fair shot if some billionaire pours a whole lot of money into your opponent's campaign. That is not democracy. And then I want you also to be thinking, these are tough issues, man. And nobody has any magical solution. So, but I want you to be thinking about it. How do we revitalize American democracy? How do we make sure that everybody has a fair shot to win an election? I happen to believe that we need to move toward public funding of elections. All right? So this issue of Citizens United, a profound issue impacting our entire country, is an issue where Secretary Clinton and Mr. Trump have very strong differences of opinion. And I say to Mr. Trump's supporters, most of you understand that the system is rigged in favor of the wealthy and the powerful. Think about voting for Hillary Clinton on this issue alone. All right. The economy of the United States of America is, in my view, a rigged economy. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? What it means is that you are living today in a nation which has more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. In fact, it has income and level inequality at a level which is obscene. Now, what I'm telling you is something you don't see on the TV very often, but I want you to check it out. And that is that today, the top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. You got that? I'm not talking about 1%, I'm talking about 1/10 of 1% owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Today in America, the United States has the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any country on earth, at the same time as over the last 16 years, we have seen a 10-fold increase in the number of billionaires. You got that? There used to be, in the year 2000, not so long ago, 51 billionaires in America. Today there are 540 billionaires. In other words, what we have seen in recent years is a massive redistribution of wealth from the middle class all the way up to the top 1/10 of 1%. What our job is together is to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class. Now, for the last year and a half, I have been running all over this country, including to Colorado, telling people that our tax system is corrupt, that it's grossly unfair. And yet, in one day, Mr. Trump did more to make my point than I did in a year and a half. Thank you, Donald Trump. And what Donald Trump said is, yes, I am a multi-billionaire, one of the wealthiest people in this country. Yes, I have mansions all over the world. Yes, I live in the lap of luxury, and I, a multi-billionaire, don't have to pay a nickel in federal income tax because I got you to pay the taxes. Thank you, Donald Trump, for telling the American people how corrupt our tax system is. But I have some bad news for Donald Trump, and that is, not only is he going to lose this election, but he and his billionaire friends are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. And by the way, it is not just wealthy individuals like Trump and other billionaires who do not pay their fair share of taxes, or in some cases pay anything at all. It is large multinational corporations who set up their businesses in tax havens like the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. So you can have corporations in this country making billions of dollars a year in profit. They do not pay a nickel in federal corporate taxes. Now, why is that important? That's important for obvious reasons, and that is we have enormous needs that have to be funded in this country, and the billionaire class and large, profitable multinational corporations are going to start paying their fair share so we can address those needs. Now, when we talk about the economy, here is the reality, and I do understand why there are many people out there who are angry, who are hurting, who are thinking about voting for Donald Trump. But I ask them to consider this. I ask them to take a hard look at Clinton's economic proposals and Trump's economic proposals. Secretary Clinton understands that in America today, the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage, okay? And she understands that we have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, and that anyone working in America 40 hours a week should not be living in poverty. So I say to Mr. Trump's supporters, if you're out there today, and I know you are, and you're hurting, and you're making $9 or $10 an hour, ask yourself which candidate is going to raise the minimum wage, and the answer is Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump. And there is another issue directly related, which is almost embarrassing that we do have to talk about in the year 2016. Women in America should not be earning 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. We need pay equity. You know, we don't need a long discourse on the fact that people who do equal work should receive equal pay. That's common sense. And Hillary Clinton is a strong supporter of pay equity for women. Donald Trump is not. Now, another issue which impacts many of you. And let me deal with this for a moment. What I hope we can do as a nation is begin to think big and not small, to understand that we today in America are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We're not a poor country. We are the wealthiest country ever. Most people don't know that because almost all the new income and wealth is going to the people on top. So ask yourself this question. We are living today in a highly competitive global economy. Don't we need to have the best educated workforce in the world? And I think the answer is obviously yes. No one can deny that. No one can deny that. So then take a deep breath and look at where we are. And we'll start off right here, Colorado State. And that is to ask ourselves, how does it happen in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world that there are hundreds of thousands of bright young people who are well qualified, who have done well in high school? They cannot go to college for one reason and one reason alone, and that is their families lack the income. To my mind, that is totally absurd. God only knows how many scientists and engineers and great teachers and all kinds of great business people out there who will never have that opportunity because their families lack the money. That should not be happening in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world in the year 2016. Secretary Clinton and I, during our campaigns in the primary, approached this issue both seriously and in slightly different ways. But after the campaign, we came together, and this is what we said. Number one, we will make public colleges and universities tuition-free for every family in America earning less than $125,000 a year. That's 83% of the population. And here is the second thing. Anybody here dealing with the issue of student debt? Anybody not dealing with student debt probably would be the better question. Okay. Can somebody tell me what your interest rates that you're paying on the debt? What do I hear? How much? 12%? 9%? Okay. 7%. All right, here is the story. This is what Secretary Clinton believes, among other proposals. She goes further than this. For a start, what she believes and what I believe is that right now you can go out, you can leave here and go buy a car, and you can probably buy a new car with interest rates of 1 or 2%. You could refinance your home. I know it depends on different parts of the country, but in Vermont, you could do it for probably 3 or 4% refinance your home. So if you could refinance your home for 3 or 4%, buy a car for 2% interest rates, why in God's name are you paying 12% or 9% interest rates on your student debt? So Secretary Clinton believes, in addition to making public colleges and universities tuition-free for the middle class, that what we have got to do is allow people to refinance their student debt at the lowest interest rates they can find. That will mean a very significant savings for millions of people. Here's the second point. Right now there is a program, which I doubt most of you have heard of. It's called the National Health Service Corps. And I was very active in expanding that program. This is what the program says. It says that if you graduate medical school or dental school or nursing school, or you are a psychologist and you are prepared to practice in underserved areas, medically underserved areas, of which there are too many in America, the government will forgive your debt. Okay? I want to see, and Secretary Clinton wants to see, that concept expanded. We need great teachers in this country. We need great child care workers in this country. And if you are prepared to go out there and work with the children, if you are prepared to be an educator in a public school, in my view, you deserve to have your student debt forgiven. Secretary Clinton understands further that while we have made good progress in the economy over the last 8 years, we have not gone anywhere near as far as we should be going. In other words, when Obama came to office, and my Republican colleagues in the Senate, you see, they suffer from a very serious illness. And unlike Mr. Trump, we do not make fun of people with disabilities. But they have a disability, and the disability is, which I don't want to make fun of, is they suffer from a very serious illness called amnesia. And amnesia means you have memory lapses. So they go every day blaming Obama because it's raining, it's snowing, it's hot, it's cold. Very easy to blame Obama for any problem that ever existed. What they forget, but I haven't forgotten, and I hope some of you have not forgotten, is the state of the economy after 8 years of George W. Bush. Eight years ago today, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. That is an unbelievable number. Now, my Republican colleagues, they say, well, we're only creating 200, 300,000 jobs a month now. Not good enough. Well, maybe not. But it's a hell of a lot better than losing 800,000 jobs a month. My Republican colleagues in the Senate, they always bemoan the deficit, worry about the deficit, which is a serious issue. But they forget to tell the American people that in Bush's last year, we were running up a $1.4 trillion deficit, the largest deficit in the history of our country, and we have come a long way in lowering that number. And by the way, just in passing, my Republican colleagues forget to tell the American people that 8 years ago today, we were worried about the collapse of the entire world financial system. That's how bad it was. So yes, we have a lot more to do, but we have in fact come and made some good gains under President Obama, and I thank the President for that. What Secretary Clinton understands is that we need to do more. We need to create millions of decent paying jobs so when you guys leave school, there are good paying jobs out there commensurate with your education. We should be hiring teachers, not firing teachers. And what Secretary Clinton also understands is that in the United States of America, our infrastructure, our roads, bridges, water systems, wastewater plants, our airports, our rail system should not be collapsing, and that we can create millions of all kinds of jobs rebuilding that infrastructure. Now, it goes without saying that as perhaps the most progressive member in the U.S. Senate, I have strong differences of opinion with my Republican colleagues on everything. All right, that's fine. That's fine. That's called democracy. But there is one issue where our differences really are embarrassing, and that is Secretary Clinton and me. We are old-fashioned. We actually believe in science. Now, I know that that is a radical idea. Imagine that, actually developing policy based on factual scientific information. But despite the fact that it may sound like a radical idea, that's what Secretary Clinton believes, and that is what I believe. And that takes us to an issue which is perhaps the major global crisis that we face, and that is climate change. Now, I am a member, proudly, of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment and the U.S. Senate Committee on Energy. And in that capacity, I have met with scientists all over our country and all over the world. And what we now know is the scientific community is virtually unanimous. There is no longer a debate. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. That's the fact. And what the scientists tell us, and I hate to leave this on your generation's shoulders, but what they tell us, if we do not get our act together boldly and aggressively and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, the situation will likely become much, much worse. What they tell us, in fact, is they have underestimated the speed at which the planet is warming, underestimated the fact that we will have more drought, more flooding, more extreme weather disturbances, more rising sea levels, more acidification of the ocean, and what we will also have, according to the CIA, is more international conflict as peoples around the world are forced to fight for limited natural resources like water or land to grow their crops. That is what we are looking at if we do not move aggressively to transform our energy system. Secretary Clinton understands that reality and has a very significant program in terms of growing sustainable energy and energy efficiency in this country. Donald Trump thinks, and this is sad to say, but like most Republicans, not all, but like most Republicans, he believes that climate change is a hoax. In fact, he wants us to become more dependent upon fossil fuels. So, if there is no other reason out there, this is a reason to vote big time for Hillary Clinton. The differences on climate change. As Americans, we should be ashamed that we as a nation have more people in jail than any other country on earth. Today, we have 2.2 million people in jail, and we spend $80 billion a year at the local, state, federal level locking up fellow Americans. We have far more people in jail than China, a country 4 times our size, which is a communist authoritarian country. Our criminal justice system is broken. It needs major reform. And what Secretary Clinton believes and what I believe, it makes infinitely more sense for our young people to be investing in jobs and education than in jails and incarceration. And she also understands that the American people are tired of seeing videos of unarmed African Americans being shot and killed. Now, I was a mayor of Burlington, Vermont for 8 years and worked closely with my police department. I've worked with police all over the country. The vast majority of police officers are honest and hardworking, and being a cop today is a very, very difficult job. But what Secretary Clinton understands, and I understand, is that a police officer, like any other public official, if he or she breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. And she understands, as I think we all understand, is that we need a lot of training in police departments so that all of us know that lethal force should be the last response, not the first response. Secretary Clinton also knows that today in America we have 11 million undocumented people. And she believes, as I do, that we have got to take people out of living in the shadows, out of living in fear. I remember last year I was in Phoenix, and I met with some young Latino kids, some teenagers and some younger. and with tears in their eyes, they were telling me how frightened they were that one day they were going to come home from school and find out that their mom or dad was deported. And what Secretary Clinton and I believe is that the time is long overdue for this country to move to comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. Change, real change, never comes easy, and it never comes without struggle. As Americans, we should be proud that we have fought very hard, and people have died, gone to jail in the struggle, to make this a less discriminatory society than it used to be. And we have a lot to be proud of in that regard. But what we should also understand that there is one area of enormous consequence where not only have we not made progress, we have fallen behind. And that is the economic struggle, the goal of creating a nation in which all of our people have a decent standard of living. There is no rational economic reason why 58% of all new income generated today is going to the top 1%. There is no moral reason why for the last 40 years the middle class of this country has been shrinking, why we have 43 million people living in poverty, and why the very rich get richer while so many other people become poorer. Now, taking on the big money interests is not easy. They have unlimited sums of money. When you're talking about taking on the health insurance industry, when we talk about taking on the pharmaceutical industry, whose greed is causing us to pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, this is not easy stuff. When we talk about the reality that the United States of America is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, there are reasons for that. So what I hope very much, and I'll conclude on this note, November 8th, Election Day, is a very, very important day. And we've got to do everything that we can to defeat Mr. Trump and elect Secretary Clinton. But, and here is the big but, I should never always use that, big but. That doesn't sound quite the way I meant it. All right. But here is what is very important. I hope all of you understand that politics and political engagement does not end on Election Day. That we need you the day after the election. Right now, we have a Congress dominated by people whose job it is to represent the billionaires who contribute to their campaigns. What we have got to do through the involvement of millions of people and young people playing a major role in that is to stand up and demand a Congress that represents everybody, not just wealthy campaign contributors. If you are prepared to stand up and fight, absolutely, we will make public colleges and universities tuition-free and reduce student debt. We will move toward guaranteeing health care to all people and significantly lowering the cost of prescription drugs. We will achieve pay equity for women. We will lead the world in transforming our energy system and combating climate change. We will be a nation in where we are educating our young people, not locking them up. Nothing that I am talking about this afternoon is utopian. It is all absolutely doable. But in order to make it happen, we need you and millions of other people to stand up to the greed of the billionaire class and tell them that no longer are they going to get it all. We're going to have an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the few. Thank you all very much.